Thank you to my secretary for announcing that. Okay, so we are at the end of Reish Mem Vav. Siman Reish Mem Vav. We were up to Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Lamed Gimel. Just to remind us about the tail end of this siman, we saw a series of heterim that were presented by the Shulchan Aruch about how to make an arrangement where this Jewishly owned animal is able to be used by a non-Jew in certain circumstances. Oftentimes we saw that it had to be that the achrayus, the responsibility, the financial responsibility, had to be borne by the non-Jew in that circumstance in order for that to even get off the ground. We saw the case of the apoteke where the non-Jew doesn't have the right to sell it, but because that animal is being used as the security essentially. But nonetheless, it was okay because in theory, if the payment is made in full for this loan, then the animal, the animal is not coming home. So the arrangement is technically okay, even though there is a lien on it, so the non-Jew can't sell it. Okay, so bottom line, so we saw those things. And the Ramah at the very end, let's just reread the Ramah and then we'll look at the Mishnah Berurah once more. The Ramah writes, so we're on page, in my edition it says 20 on the top. I think everyone has the same. Okay, so Ramah writes, the whole Sabi Heterim Elu, all these different Heterim, all these ways that we said it's permissible to have these arrangements. Hilchot Saninhu, that's the Psak Halacha. You can use any of these methods, it's fine. They're all perfectly valid. But he said, you can use whatever you want. Even if the animal is completely owned by the Jew, as was the case in some of these situations where there was a loan, it wasn't even a partnership, it was a loan. So Dino Keilu Haisa B'Shutafus Ha'ela Yehudi, it's like it's a partnership with the non-Jew. And again, we talk about if there's a partnership with the non-Jew and it's properly arranged, then it's completely a fine. It's a perfectly fine arrangement. Just what you should do, make sure you publicize what it is that you're doing so people understand the heter that's being used here. Again, to circumvent the issue of Marisayan, because Marisayan is still a concern in the background. Again, as I pointed out, though, suddenly Marisayan, which was a big deal, it becomes not such a big deal here. Just tell everybody what you're doing, which we had described such a heter before, but we kind of cringed to use it. Here, the Ramah seems okay, pulling it out, without any qualifications.
What does it mean? What does it mean to publicize the fact?
It could mean simply something as the going to the Beis Din in town and making it clear to the sort of dayanim of the area what's happening. We saw in the Shulchan Aruch the idea of Yichtov Kei B'Arka Oseham, even putting it maybe out there in the non-Jewish, legal system, with filing it somewhere, the deal, making sure it's on record. I think that's what it means. That way, the people of the Jewish people of the town, again, now we live in cities and communities that are huge and it's beautiful, but that wasn't always the case. It was usually more like a shtetl, it's like a ghetto kind of, and everybody knows everybody. It's kind of like growing up in Columbus, Ohio. Everybody knows everybody, and you want to be able to circumvent the problem of people finding out. But yes, it's not fully spelled out what it means to publicize, but I assume it has to be something of that nature. Okay, so let's look at Lamed Gimel in the Mishnah Berurah again. Siman Reish Mem Vav Sif Katan Lamed Gimel, where the Mishnah Berurah says, or comments on the phrase Zero Ki'ilu Haisa B'Shutafus Ha'eno Yehudi, that it's like being in partnership with the non-Jew, even though it's not actually. All these arrangements, when do we say it's totally fine? When we are renting it out or we're lending it out, and the non-Jew is going to do his or her own work, not my work. They're going to take the animal and they're going to use it for their work. But if this is a trick where you're striking a deal and wink, wink, nod, nod, he's going to do your work or she's going to do your work, then what do we say? That's not okay. That's not okay. Ain't heter klal. There is no heter at all. Now, I will say the following though. I think the sale is still valid. I don't think you can undo the sale. Is the sale, but that it's mutter to engage in such an arrangement. That's when the rabbis say that, or this Mishnah Berurah is saying that's not what they were intending when they gave a heter here. They were giving a heter if the non-Jew was going to do their own work, not your work, with a wink, wink, nod, nod sale. So
does it mean that that's something non-kosher going on?
yes. So afilu in mechara lo habehim v'chira gemura, even if it's a full sale, straight up, I just sell you the animal. Sharei mikol makom osa eino Yehudi melechas Yisrael b'Shabbos v'Shvil. You know why it's a problem? Because there's another problem. It's called Amir L'Nachvar. You can't tell a non-Jew to do work on your behalf. The animal's not mine anymore. I totally sold it. Yeah, good. So you got off one problem. Now you have another problem because you can't have a non-Jew. You can't tell them or hint to them that you need certain things to be done. Well, if you let's say you have a case of the horses belong to a Jew, and there's a separate arrangement where the non-Jew has to do all the malachos for the Jew. He has to do all sorts of work. You can't sell them the horses and then basically have another arrangement on the table that basically says you have to take the horses, which are used to perhaps transport merchandise, and you'll be doing it on Shabbos. If you arrange it in a way that he doesn't have to do the work on Shabbos, it's fine. But you can't have an arrangement where the work has to be done on Shabbos. It involves horses, and then I'd sell you horses, and everybody understands. It's not on paper, but everyone understands the horses are going to be used to do my work. But it's not my horse. That's a problem. He can't do my work for me. That's a separate problem. So you can't start conflating the issues.
You can't even say something like, gee, I was going to use this horse to do this work on Shabbat, but I can't, so I may as well sell you the horse.
Right, exactly. That's not what that's not. And we'll see. I know there's a thing about the hinting. It's not so clear that the hinting is mutter. This is funny, by the way. I think it's the Mishnah Berurah. I don't want to misquote him, but I think it's the Mishnah Berurah who quotes this. And I remember Newberger was one of the Rosh Yeshiva. He goes, because the logic doesn't add up. Because at the end of the day, the non-Jew is not doing it a daite de nafshe. They're doing it because they crack the riddle, and they understand what they're doing, and they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for you. So that you might have to actually protest that they shouldn't do the malacha for you. If let's say do something for you, let's say I'm sitting. I tell this all the time to our staff. I'm sitting. Let's say I'm in the library. Light is off. I need to get a sefer for giving a Dvar Torah, a drush, or whatever. So I'm in there getting a sefer, and Ursula or Andre will walk in and say, "Turn on light." They're doing it on their own behalf because they want to be nice to me. Say, absolutely not. Don't turn the light on me. Don't turn the light on because they're doing it for me. If they're doing a malacha for me, I really should be saying, please don't do that. If I turn it on when I didn't notice, then it actually is an interesting question. Can I use the light because they did it on my behalf? I don't want to get into those issues. We will get into them at some point. But I don't want to get to that right now. But it's not so clear that if the malacha is being done on my behalf and I just kind of winked at them, that's going to be okay. But I know that's a heter it's on paper. So I'm not saying that you can't use that, but the legal logic doesn't add up when we put all the Gemara pieces from the Gemara together.
Your back is I'm saying my back is against the wall. Somebody's turned the light on and I don't know.
Correct. I can't control what they do. Yeah. The question is if they've done it now, what can I benefit or not benefit? That's an interesting question, which we will get to in Hilchot Shabbat. Okay. Okay. So how is it mutter? If you make the arrangement with the horses such that you'll take my merchandise your job is to transport my merchandise, but you don't have to do it on Shabbos. You just need to get it from A to B, from the warehouse to the store, and I don't tell you when you do it. You just do the job. There's no date, and that's okay. I was sure Rambam. That's okay. The Rambam even says that that's fine, as we've talked about in Reish Mem Dalet Sif Hey. I feel the offense there. Also, lo marshlos shisa b'Shabbos. So I should again be very explicit. Don't do the work on Shabbos. Ella di huno seya mi'atzmo ein tzarich lemano misa. If the person does it on their own behalf, then that's okay. They chose to do the work on Shabbos. I didn't tell them they have to do the work on Shabbos, and so they want to transport it early. Okay, that's on them. That's fine. So again, that we've talked about many times. If the arrangement is okay, then the animal sale is okay also. But if I have another arrangement where I'm basically telling you to use the animal that I'm selling you, that's not going to be okay. Not because I don't think the sale works. The sale is valid. There's nothing wrong with the sale itself, per se. But the rabbis forbade such activity because really of the Amir Lenachri issue. So that's the whole point here, though. So he's getting around it by saying I sold it to the non-Jew, so it's not my animal. You're right. The Torah says, of course, my animals should rest on Shabbos.
I mean, why can you strike, the whole agreement? You know that there's a possibility the guy's going to use it. So why even take the risk?
So I have.
Well, but the point is, once I sell it, it's not my animal anymore. Only animal has to rest on Shabbos are the ones that have on their name tag around their collar as a Jewish owner to return it to. But if it's non-Jew, as a non-Jewish animal, non-Jewish owned animal, then it's totally fine. There's no problem at all. The animal can work. Yeah, only when they're it's a Jewish owned animal.
On this, if you have a dog, right? You're feeding him, you're walking him.
Yes.
You got it. You have to do that.
You can take care of it. You can take care of the animals. Totally fine.
That has nothing to do with what. No, they're not doing any work.
That's the way it works. You give your dog kibbles and bits or whatever they eat. I don't know. It's fine. Of course, you should. You're mechuyev to feed your dog. It's it's our balicham if you don't if you don't feed your dog.
Not sit down unless you feed the dog first.
Good. That's a halacha. Actually, it is the halacha. Okay, lamed dalet. Last comment on Mishnah Berurah on Reish Mem Vav. They're actually a farsem b'fulei. Ayin b'veir halacha, which we're not going to look at inside, but in the Veir halacha, which is written by the Chafetz Chaim as well, which is right next door to the Mishnah Berurah. So the Mishnah Berurah kedarko b'kodesh, not so comfortable with all the heterim. You should use all these heterim that we've talked about, unless it's a shas adchak, you're really up against the wall here for financial reasons or whatnot. Okay, then maybe. And here now we understand where he's coming at. He says, again, sort of this is in contrast to those people shemocher bekavana who, with their full knowledge and intent, sell their oxen as hashvarehen so that the non-Jew could do the work on Shabbos with them. But at the end of the day, they're doing work for the Jew. And they're trying to use this wink, nod arrangement. Because technically the sale is okay. And the malacha, better yet, let me back up. They know with Kavana what they're doing. They're selling this to a non-Jew so that they should do work on Shabbos. But they're gonna use the animal on Shabbos. And people are going to think that's what it's called. The work that's being done here is going to be attributed to a Jew. Now, okay, we shouldn't protest those who are makil. The Ramah said you can be makil. So if what to rely upon, anyone who's really a bal nefesh, meaning like they're very careful about keeping halacha. They shouldn't do these things unless it's a really difficult situation. And they get a heter from their rav. So I don't know if I've ever told the story about Bal Nefesh and Rav Amital. There's a story. Rav Amital was the famed Rosh Yeshiva at Gush. He passed away, say 2010 or something like that. He's already been a number of years. And Rav Amital was, the story was told about him when he would learn Mishnah Berurah, and he would get to a line like this, and it says, Bal Nefesh Yachmir Al Atzmo, Bal Nefesh Yachmir. I say, oh, Bal Nefesh, that's not me, because it's there was, I got to worry about making sure it's right, and then we'll worry about the next step of, getting all the chumras. But he would learn that. So my Rebbe was fond of saying, everybody reads the Mishnah Berurah and they say Bal Nefesh Yachmir Atzmo. That's me. But Amital was like, that's not me. So you have to know when to take on a chumrah and when to know not to take on a chumrah. So here, this is a Bal Nefesh situation. Again, Mishnah Berurah often will take a more machmir approach, as you see here, but that's not the letter of the law. Yisrael sheyesh lo sus. A Jew who has a horse, and then comes a government official, and who knows this Jew and makes clear the intent that he would like to borrow it or to rent it. Now the Jew can't be like, well, I have a law in the books that says, you can't really do it because I'm going to be on the hook, and he's like, I work for the government, you're going to give me, it's not like a benevolent democracy always, you have to give up your horse. So what should you do? Just make a sale. Tell him, here, give me a quarter down payment for the sale. It's your horse. And then, okay, at least you did some sort of sale. That's the way when they do the work, technically it's theirs. Now they think that they're borrowing in their head, so they come in and they give it back. And now they give payment, right? So they want to pay for their rental. I told you, just give me a quarter, and it's yours. Don't worry about it. And then they said they want to do the right thing, and they say, okay, we used it for a month. Here's the horse, and here's $100, because we used it, so we want to pay our constituents for what we use. So matana, exactly. Matana be'alma yachivla. So how should we treat that payment? Because it looked like retroactively it was a rental payment the whole time. So he says, no, we should just treat it as a matana be'alma. It's really it's a gift that's being given to you. In your head, you should consider it like you had sold it, and if you got it, you never got it back. So that's okay. It is what it is. And if you get it back with the money, so it's a matana, and that's how we should treat it. Okay. Again, this is a little bit of a legal fiction. I'm admitting that. And the reason I'm admitting that is because that I think it's okay, I should say, is because, and the Mishnah Berurah is saying it's okay, it doesn't mean my haskama, but this was the life of Jews sometimes when they're dealing with the local authorities. Sometimes they would take things. This is not the only case where you see this come up. It's clear that this was something that did happen from time to time, and you had to get along with the local authorities. And that's where the Rabbanim were always makil because of sakana. You don't want to mess with the local officials, and who knows what they would do if the Jews did something. We were accused of plenty of things in history where we didn't even do it, and they did things to us lest we come to actually do something that makes them upset. There are heterim. Okay. They're not going to give back. Exactly. Yeah. By the way, if you look in the bracket there, just so you see that this was a tshuva that was asked of somebody. That's why it's not a made up case. Tshuva was Yaakov, So again, these are people. There's the actual situation that somebody is getting the money back. So say it was a nice person, right? To Mike's point, what do you do now from a halachic perspective? And I answered, it's okay. You treat it as a matana. You didn't, you weren't expecting the payment. You're okay.
The issue, am I correct that the issue here is Amir al-Akum, not so much the rental, in the sense that everything you've described is kind of first level. You take the horse and then you use it right away. But if you rent a horse from me and 6 months later you use it for something that we didn't contemplate at the time of rental, that's also not good. But it's not good for Amir al-Akum, not because of the rental issue.
So I think here, as we talked about, let's say I have an arrangement with a non-Jew where they're supposed to return it to me by Friday, the animal to me by Friday, by Shabbos. They don't. And then what happens? They go ahead and they actually use it on Shabbos. So I have to really attempt to distance myself from this animal. We talked about this whole heter of declaring it ownerless, of hefker. The whole point of the hefker heter was because I really am not supposed to have my not really supposed to own that on Shabbos. If something happens and it's beyond my power to know what was happening, I'm not even there. Okay, so nothing I can do. But if I can anticipate that the animal is going to be used, then that's probably what's going to happen here. And they're not looking to own the animal. They're just taking it from me. They're saying, oh, we'll pay you. We'll give you a rental payment. As Mike has said, nice that they paid you back. You're not always going to get paid back. So you basically, create a situation here where you make a sale. You say, give me a quarter, just a little small thing, and then it's yours. And you convince the person it's fine. He gives you a little bit of change for the sale. That is actually to circumvent the issue of owning the behema on Shabbos. The Amir Lanochri issue here is actually not so much the problem because they're not doing it on my behalf. There may be a Maris Ayin concern, but again, we're talking about a government official here taking something from you. I think people won't be having Maris Ayin concerns because they'll know if the government official has your horse, they might actually assume the opposite, that it was probably taken.
Okay.
Yeah. I think here it's more the behema issue. Okay. Let's continue on here to the Reish Mem Zayin. Okay, we finished Reish Mem Vav. By the way, as I think I pointed out last time, Aruch HaShulchan mentions nothing about Bal Nefesh Yachmer Latzmo. He doesn't mention that you should be Machmir, etc. He just leaves the halacha as the Ramah says it, and that's it. Okay. Reish Mem Zayin. The title of this siman is Din Einam Yehudim Hamaviim Ksavim B'Shabbos. I know you're a little on the last page. I have this packet, so I need to make another copy, but it's enough for today that we can work with it. So this is going to bring back to the forefront the issue of Maris Ayin. So we'll just preview what's going on in this siman. There's a little bit of Maris Ayin, and there's a little bit of a concern of a non-Jew doing malacha for behalf of the Jew, and also, I believe, floating in the background here, and I will point out where it is the issue of tchum. So we might have to spend a few minutes understanding what a tchum is, which is that once you reach the city limits, once you get to the edge of a particular city, literally as the Gemara defines it, to the last house in the town, you then have alpayim amma in all directions. You have 2,000 amot in all directions to traverse. There is no Eruv. There is an Eruv that can help you here, but it's not the Eruv that we love and know. The Eruv there is an Eruv Tchum, and that's when you place bread or food items literally in a house that is in a certain distance, outside the town, which will give you more room to continue to walk in that direction. I don't want to get too far into that. But bottom line is you have 2,000, amot, and you have to, that's really all you have. Forget whether you have an Eruv around the town, doesn't help you. Tchum is about a boundary of how far you can actually travel on Shabbos. This is an issue that does come up here in New York, because you say, oh, what do you mean? Every town leads to the next town, to the next town, to the next town, essentially, which is true to a certain extent. Obviously, once you go north in a certain direction, the houses stop. The density of our area dissipates, and you can go 2,000 amos without hitting another house. The bigger problem here is actually the Hudson River in New York. The question is, in the Heights, it was always a question: can you take a walk? It's like a very nice walk. Elise and I took often, which is you walk across the George Washington Bridge and then you walk back. The question is on Shabbos, can you do that, or are you walking outside the tchum? It depends also how you draw the tchum. There are very interesting issues about it's not a circle. It's not a circle. It's not like you have a pinpoint and then you have a radius and then you draw a circle of 2,000 amos. You actually can draw a box. This is how the Gemara defines it, which means you also get the corners, which means you get a little bit to cheat in terms of the 2,000 amos, but that's built into the system. But it's a very complex issue, not one I want to go into, but just know that the issue of going from one town to the other, the big issue could be that you went outside of Tchum from one city to get to the other city that you traveled. That's going to come up here. So again, Maris Ayin is going to come up, Amir Lanochri, and I believe floating in the background here is also the issue of Tchum. So let's start up Reish Mem Zayin. A very practical issue for all of us. We all use the mail system. We all use delivery systems today, actually maybe more than they did in those days. So here's the case. Sholeach Adam Igeres biyad eino Yehudi va'afilu be'erev Shabbos im chashecha. You can send a person. A person can send a letter with a non-Jew even on Erev Shabbos, as it's getting dark, so it's late in the day, Shabbos is 6 o'clock, and 5:30, you hand this letter to the non-Jew to take. What are the keys to this arrangement being permitted? Number one, kotzatz lo damim. You paid a price, a fixed price. If you take my letter, I pay you 49 cents. You take my letter to wherever I addressed it. Okay, it's like a stamp. Okay. But you can't. One thing you cannot say is that you take my letter on. I gave it to you for 30 minutes before Shabbos. It takes at least an hour to get to wherever this letter is supposed to go. If I go as fast as I can with the transportation that we have today, it's going to be on Shabbos. So as long as I don't tell you to do this on Shabbos, let's pause right there and look at the first 4 comments of the Mishnah Berurah right off the bat, because I don't want to introduce the Beidoar right, immediately. What's going on here? Aleph, Igeres. Hu adin b'chol malachos. This is really the case with all malachos, not just sending a letter. Kishinosen lo, you give the person, the non-Jew, the malacha to do. Ve'ein shus legomer kodem haShabbos, and there's not enough time to do it before Shabbos, to complete the work before Shabbos. So what should you do? Obviously, you pay them a fixed price to do the malacha. I say, look, all I need you to do it by next week. I don't need it today. And if they choose to do that on Shabbos, that's okay. They did it for their own good. They wanted to get the job done faster. Maybe they wanted to get the payment faster. Maybe they wanted just to get on to their other works. They're just getting this out of the way. Doing it on behalf of the Jew when they do it on Shabbos. So could the Isa Lekaman b'simulation and basis? We'll see when we get to simulation and base, and we talk more about this issue of work that is being adaited enough, done, on the non-Jew is doing it for their own benefit. Ela nakat igeret. Why do we specify the case of igeret if this really is a law across the board? What's so special about an igeres? La'ashmu'inan the ilo kotzatz. That if you don't make such a stipulation, you don't give them the stamp, you don't pay them something, you just give them, here, can you do this, for me? Send the letter on my behalf. Below kivia beidoar b'masa, and he already introduces the beidoar. Okay, and if there's not a fixed beidoar, a beidoar literally in modern Hebrew means a post office. Those days, I don't think they had fancy post office systems the way we have today. I wouldn't call a post office fancy. Yeah. But the Mishnah Berurah for sure. I don't know about I'm not an expert. I don't know. But in the time of the Shulchan Aruch, was there a beidoar? I'm not sure. By the way, you see here the definition. If you go back upstairs where it says beidoar, and then you see in brackets it says peirush. You see that in the Shulchan Aruch. There's a interjection in the comments there. A beidoar was an isha doer shekol ksav elav yuval. Everyone knew that if you wanted to send mail to Scarsdale, and you want, that letter, someone will take the letter to Scarsdale and they'll drop it at Yankel's house. Yankel is the postman, the one and only postman. And he knows the town very well. This is his chiddush, and he starts distributing all the letters to everybody. Obviously, people are paying him to deliver it. Otherwise, he's just doing a big favor for everybody every day. So this was a business. Okay, so there was a person who was the beidoar. It's not as fancy. Literally, it's the postman. Okay, so we're going to see. I'm frustrated that he introduced this here. Let's go to Sifkat and Beis Gimel and Dalet, and then we'll come back to this end of this Mishnah Berurah here, which is why Igeres is here. I'm sorry, I forgot that he already brings this in, because the issue of beidoar is a little more complicated, and I want to give it a full attention.
Next day here, for example.
So hold on, good. Let's go to Beis here. This is all being done right before Shabbos. The sun is still shining. Obviously, they have to be able to leave my property before the sun is set. If it's already Shabbos and I give them the item, or they can't even leave my property on Shabbos, so now we also have our Marisayan concern. People will think that I just made this deal on Shabbos. They see you leaving with the box out of my house, and it's already 7:59 at night, and they're like, "Oh, look, the non-Jew is leaving their house with this thing." So you already have that concern. Uvelvad Gimel, V'hima'eno Yehudi Amar Me'atzma Sheyelech b'Shabbos. Le'eslon ba. The non-Jew says, great, I'm going to take it on Shabbos. Oh, okay. I don't, Kevan Yisrael lo Amar lo zeh, I didn't tell you to do that. Ve'eno Yehudi adaite denafshe. Here's the key. He's doing it denafshe av kavid b'shvil schirusay. He'd rather get paid tomorrow or after Shabbos is over than, let's say, a week later when I told him I need the package delivered by next week. So he wants to get paid right away. So he's doing it for his own benefit. And Dalet sheyelech b'Shabbos v'hu adin shelo yomar lo. So it's not just I can't explicitly tell them to go on Shabbos. I also can't tell the non-Jew, can you make sure it gets there by Sunday or Monday? Now, obviously, in those days, they didn't have quite as quick transportation as we have today. And I'm telling this person something that I know that they cannot do it unless they can't get it there by Sunday or Monday unless they actually also travel on Shabbos, which means that they're outside the Tchum and they're, carrying on my behalf and they're doing things on my behalf, which are not allowed. So that's also not allowed. It's like I said, go on Shabbos. So when you talk about Tanya brings up the overnight, that actually maybe explicitly telling them to do it on Shabbos because I'm paying for the thing that says, make sure it's there by the next day and it's 30 minutes before Shabbos. It's interesting. What if I arranged for 1 day delivery, but I got it there at 7 a.m. So if in theory it was possible for them to have delivered it to this destination before Shabbos was over, and they choose on their own what we'd rather just for our own efficiency, we want to do one flight to whatever. And so we're going to take this letter, we're going to take this package later. But in theory, if they wanted to, they could have commissioned an airplane or whatever mode of transportation, meaning it was legitimate. And you have to know what's legitimate. It's a little bit hard to know because you can make a case that something is legitimate. They could have flown it there, but that maybe they don't have an airplane. They only have trucks in this company, and so you have to work within the framework of what's legitimate within that company.
Knowing the rules of the business, the way they run it, you may want to do a fiction on that, legal fiction on it, but it's impossible because when you send something, FedEx is going to deliver it next day. UPS, post office may delay it till Monday. That's a different story. But if you say you have to actually specify Saturday delivery,
Right.
If you do, it won't go.
you won't. Yeah.
It won't go to Monday.
There will be next business day, which is okay.
Right.
But if you specify next,
Right. Then you're telling them explicitly that you want it to be done on Shabbos. Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
that's a problem when you have to.
It's a problem on Yom Tov
Yom
too.
Tov is
Correct.
a bigger problem than Shabbos because Shabbos I can not tell them, next business day is fine. But if I send it in an Erev Rosh Hashanah or Erev
But did
Sukkot,
you tell them that it needs to be delivered the next day?
but if I send it next day service,
Uh-huh.
it's usually next
Sweet.
business day.
So correct. So next
And
day
if Yom Tov
service,
is a problem,
that's correct.
on
that would be a
Shabbos,
problem.
Friday's not a problem
Yeah.
because next business day is Monday.
Monday. Yeah, so that's correct. If you have a Yom Tov, that's the next day after, and you're checking off next business day. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem again. Unless you have a case like the following: you have a FedEx, you're sending FedEx from here to Boston, not that far. Probably they don't even put that on a plane. They probably put that one on a truck. Again, we don't always know. Yes, it's true. They're probably going to deliver it the next day, but they may even get it to Boston by the time Yom Tov for Shabbos starts. And the fact that they don't see I should double check this, but my gut tells me that they're choosing for their sake to deliver it the next day because it's better for their business, for their efficiency. But they could have delivered it, on that very same day. And they just didn't. If I gave it to them, let's say early enough. Again, these cases, a lot of it comes down to the mitzias. Just what practically, what's the case? How does the business function normally? Is it legitimate that I could have done it before Shabbos or not legitimate? And one could argue about what that means.
Last week, I don't know if it's Saturday or Shabbos. The rabbi says, why not? They chose to deliver on Shabbos. They put the list.
Correct. Meaning, if I tell them, let's say I put something in the mail system, I didn't. I realized actually maybe I put it, let's say, in the mail on Thursday. Oftentimes, a local mail, then the next day it doesn't get delivered because they're kind of sorting it, and then it'll come 2 days later. Right? So if, let's say, you're sending invitations out, you put them in the mail on Thursday, it's probably going to be delivered on Shabbos. Like logic tells you it's likely a Shabbos delivery. Doesn't matter. That's on the post office. The post office, I don't. I did not pay for Saturday delivery. I didn't pay for 2 day. I didn't even pay for what. They chose for their own sake to get out of the way. If they wanted to deliver on Friday, noch besser. I would have been very happy if they delivered on Friday. And if they delivered on a Monday, also fine. I mean, they choose how fast they want to put it out. And we all know from life experience, you put something in the mail, you think it's going to be delivered on a certain day, and suddenly it shows up 3 days later, and you say, what happened? And but you're okay. If you need something by a certain time, you paid for that. That's when you have to really think twice.
When you buy something online, you don't know, they didn't even give you delivery date until after you the order.
Amazon does, right?
Yeah.
Amazon.
But even then, it's not 100% sure.
I'll tell you a more specific case. I think I asked the Shaila about this one. So we sometimes use now we actually more often use like online delivery system for food. But this company called Fresh Direct. I don't know if anybody uses Fresh Direct here. So Fresh Direct has 2-hour windows in which they make deliveries, and you choose your delivery slot. It has happened where like literally the only slot available is the one that staggers the beginning of Shabbos, staggers pre-Shabbos, and then it'll trickle into Shabbos. It's 4 to 6 p.m. is a good example right now. Shabbos this week is going to be right around towards the end of that time frame. Can you sign up for that delivery slot? Part of it is mutter, part of it is Shabbos. The answer is it should be mutter. And even if they deliver it on Shabbos, it should be mutter. Why? Because when I signed up, they have a complete chance. I signed up they don't have to do it on Shabbos. I actually gave them a window of time to do it before Shabbos. If they choose to deliver it in the last 15 minutes of their time slot, or they come late, which they're not allowed to do really, then if they do that, then they really kind of owe me a favor or some refund. If they come late, or in the Shabbos part of it, it should still be fine. Also, because that food is already probably inside the tchum. If it's coming from outside the tchum on Shabbos, then it's a problem. But probably they're making local deliveries at that point. I think it's safe to say you're probably okay. And then you could bring the food in. There should be no problem bringing the food in and actually using that food on Shabbos, even though it got delivered right there at the beginning of Shabbos. Those first few minutes, it should be okay because it was okay. I'm not saying you should rely on things last minute for Shabbos for practical reasons, but that's just exhibiting the point that if there's if there's an opportunity for the delivery to be made not on Shabbos, and then they choose to make it, they choose to do this thing on Shabbos, the delivery on Shabbos, it's completely fine. In fact, I'm not even sure. Obviously, they're driving the food on my behalf, but it's less of a problem than even the Igeres. The Igeres is being taken from one place to another. I mean, Malacha is being done on Shabbos, with my letter, as opposed to the food, while it's true, is being driven around. Again, I think it's already in this home, and so there are less issues. I don't get too far into that. I'm going to pause here because of time. What we'll do next time, I'll make new sheets, number one, but we will talk about why it matters or doesn't matter that there is a postman in town. If, let's say, I don't stipulate to the non-Jew, I was like, instead of having the non-Jew who takes it and I pay him to take the letter for me, I don't stipulate, if you do this, I'll pay you 50 cents. I just say, can you take the letter for me? Maybe they're traveling there already, maybe maybe they're just they're a friend and they'll help me out. Can you take the letter? I can't go on Shabbos, you can, so why does it matter if there's a postman in that town where the letter is going or not? That will depend. The heter will depend whether or not there is a postman, and that's going to come back to Maris Ayin about when people see the non-Jewish friend who I commissioned directly to delivering the letters. on my behalf. They say, oh, the letter here is written by Nuriel Klinger, and it delivers, the non-Jewish friend delivers the letter on my behalf, to the next town over. He walked to, to Queens on my behalf, and he delivered the letter. So, wow. They don't know when, anyway. They don't even know when I sent it, by the way. That's a problem, according to the Rambam. By the way, even if I send that letter on a Sunday, 6 days in advance, because when the letter arrives in somebody's hands with my writing, my ksav on it, and the non-Jew delivered on that day, they say, wow, I guess my friend's not so frum anymore. He writes on Shabbos. But if there's a postman, so this will be circumvented, because when people see that this guy arrives in town, he's going to just hand it to the postman. And the postman's going to make the deliveries. So the postman makes the delivery on Shabbos. Everyone say, okay, probably got it on Friday, got it on Thursday. His job is not so easy. It's not like today, the mail system's not so efficient today, but they have machines and multiple postmen. But if you have essentially one guy who's working this job, it's going to take him a few days sometimes to get his letters out. So everyone will assume that, of course, he's got these in on, before Shabbos, and, whatever. And even if it turns out that he makes the delivery bo bayom on the day that he got the letter, the postman, people won't make any assumptions, because the postman he's just the shaliach who receives letters and then turns them around. So we'll talk more about this, but that's why the Beit Doar is going to matter here for these purposes. Again, I don't think we have, in our day and age, we send letters in such a fashion. We usually pay for our services, whether it's the USPS or FedEx or whatnot. But that wasn't always the case. Sometimes people sent letters with people who were, friends, or people who were going from one town to the other, and here, take the letter for me. So we'll talk all about that next week. Just stop the recording.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, take care, Steve. Thank you.
Bye.
Stop the recording.